Welcome back to the show. I'm Samay Zaki. This is New Retirement Thinking. With me in studio is Walter van der Merwe. He's CEO of Fed Group Life. Now, Walter, we were chatting a little earlier on about the need to start saving young. We talked about some of the fallacies that the industry needs to help do away with. But let's look at the savings rate. What is an adequate rate for one to start saving at?
That's a very, very good question because we all have debt. Now, there's big ticket items that you need to finance, and we have to pay that money back. It's a good discipline. We pay off that debt, and then we need to live. We've got living expenses. We've got to buy groceries. We've got to pay school fees, all of that type of thing. Now, how do you determine how much is enough to save? A simple rule of thumb is the more we save, the better. But you have to start somewhere. So once a year, if you look at your income and you look at how much you're paying away to settle your debt, how much you need to pay to live, to maintain your living standard, and then have money left over that you can work on a rand amount. Say you're earning 10,000 Rand a month and that you're using that to pay all your expenses. If I save 1,000 Rand a month, that's 10% of my income. That's a good start. You know, it's difficult sometimes to look at percentages. Sometimes it's better to look at rand and cents amount. Next year, I'm going to get a salary increase. Then I need to up that 1,000 Rand, and I have to increase it, to 1,100 Rand. That's another 10% increase on my savings. And that's the discipline that you need to put in place. 10% is a good rule of thumb. That's the amount of money you need to save.
I've heard of the 30% rule. What's your take on that number?
Sure.
You've heard that from, I think it's Warren Ingram, who likes to push them.
That is a fantastic number, and I wish I could achieve that. That's a very, very high number. I think that would be the ideal if we don't have the living expenses that we do, if we don't have the debt that we do. You know, it's always better to pay off debt first. Then you can save more. So I would say once you've settled your debt, I think we can achieve a 30% savings rate. But until, and I mean, that's realistic. We all have debt.
I mean, do you buy into the fact that we have good and bad debt? Because that's another part of this equation. Because then it comes about classifying what is good and what is bad in each one's personal circumstance.
True. My terminology of bad debt is short-term debt. So if I have to take debt to buy clothes, for example, or buy food, that would be a very, very bad thing. That's not a good thing to have. Don't buy on credit when you need to buy food. The big ticket items, like I mentioned, whether it's the house that you live in or the vehicle that you drive, that you need to finance. We don't have the capital up front to pay for those items. That's longer term debt. You get a better rate at that. You can negotiate with different providers in terms of how much you pay to finance those items. That's unfortunately the reality. That is the better debt, if debt can be termed as good, that we're all faced with.
The other side of this equation, of course, comes down to let's look at two issues. One is how transparent some of the products that we take out are. Just talk to us a bit about developments of that on that front.
Sure. It is a passion of mine. It really, really upsets me that there's fees in these products that aren't transparent, that aren't explained in a way that people can understand. And plainly, it's just wrong. What I want to know as a retirement saver is, of my 1,000 Rand a month that I do save now, how much is it costing me? Out of my 1,000 Rand, is 5 Rand taken for administration? Is 5 Rand taken to make sure the governance is in place? In other words, the legislation around protecting my money, protecting me. Then I don't mind. I don't mind paying for that. I believe it is justifiable. But if I find out after 5 years, for example, it was 30 Rand a month and nobody told me, why didn't they tell me? You know, that type of thing is really, really upsetting for any individual. It doesn't matter how much you say.
The onus is on you to find out what these things are.
Sure. So you do ask the questions, but I want it explained to me in a way that I can understand. Not percentages and some goes here and some goes there. You know, factually give me real life examples. I'm a real person, explain it to me in a real way. It doesn't need to be complex. That's the part that I believe needs to be addressed.
Do you think if we're going to benchmark now, when you look at things like our contracts, and you're saying they need to be simpler, if you benchmark us against some of the other countries in the world, are we too complex for our own liking?
I think so, yes. I mean, there's complexity around the administration of my retirement savings. There's certain aspects of that needs to be addressed that cost money. then the investment of my money, I accept, again, there's people that perform a very critical function in investing my money, and they charge a fee for that, which, again, I'm happy to pay if they do their job and they deliver the way they need to. Mm-hmm. That is true of the rest of the world as well, but I believe that when I get my statement, I can see, of my 1,000 rand, how much rands and cents went off, how much did that cost me? And I think in South Africa, we've come a long way in being more transparent in showing people after the fact. Mm-hmm. But show me before the fact. And I think the rest of the world is a little bit more advanced than us in terms of doing that. Before people commit, they can see more transparently what they are buying. Mm. That's a part that we in South Africa need to catch up with. Mm.
Let's look at legislation very, very quickly. There's a trend that we're having a lot of legislation to force issues like savings culture. What's your opinion on that?
Unfortunately, our own behavior, we've become our own worst enemy. For example, when you change jobs from one company to another company, at the moment you can take a withdrawal benefit. Mm-hmm. All that hard savings that you've put aside now becomes available for you, which is not the right thing, because it's a long-term savings towards retirement. The purpose of it is not to access that money now because you've changed jobs. Mm-hmm. So it's not enforced as yet, but the lawmakers are putting that in place to protect us from ourselves. Mm-hmm. The cost of implementing legislation we pay for. So the more legislation there is to protect us, the more it costs us. So I believe that we can behave correctly, that we don't need to have this paternal government or paternal legislation that's put in place to enforce us to behave correctly. If we understand what we're doing and that we're doing it for our own best interest, that will change things for us as well. Mm.
So let's wrap this up. So from Fed Group's perspective, when you speak to your clients, particularly when you're approaching a period like we are now, the festive season, when savings go out the window until Jan, Feb next year, what's your message and the approach that you take with those clients of yours?
When I talk to those clients, I say to them, keep things simple. What is the purpose of what you're trying to do here? You're trying to save towards retirement for the long term. Look at the costs. How much are you paying for the solution that you're putting in place? And track it over time, because it's a very long-term saving. And start now. Don't delay this, especially now, like you say, over December, where we do hopefully get bonuses or additional money.
Hopefully.
Mm-hmm. We want to go on holiday. Think about how much your holiday is going to cost you, and maybe you can scale down a little bit and save for the longer term. Put that money away.
Yeah, save for the longer term, but also, as you said, track it, but with an end goal in mind, because I think that's what tends to miss.
Correct.
In that equation. We say save, and it's just save. Yep. And someone will say save for what?
Correct.
So important to define what you're saving for.
That's it.
We'll leave it there. Thank you so much for
Pleasure.
your time. That is Walter van der Merwe. He is CEO of Fed Group Life. Until next time, from me and the team, goodbye.